The next story we're going to tell you is about the Dr. Schneider house. There was two doctor houses in Greenwich. Dr. Holmes, which later is called the Bullseye House, which eventually became a gas station. And then there's the Dr. Schneider house. My family lived there, I would say since the late 1800s. My dad right now is 97, and we got pictures of him on a little scooter with knickers on, a sailor suit. That's how far back it goes. His grandmother was a teacher down at the local Baptist church. She was very stern. She always wore long black dresses to the ground. She had little round glasses, and she always had her hair up to a bun. And that was back in the days where if you misbehaved, they could smack your hands. Boy, times sure have changed. But that was Grandma Jones, and her husband was George Jones. No, not the country singer, but his name was George Jones. He came up from West Virginia, and his partner he came up with opened up the local store. Not the Wood Mansion, but the other store. And that was a gas station at one time. But my great-grandfather came up from West Virginia with him. My great-grandfather purchased the farmland at the end of town. And my family still does own that. Now, so much for history of my family. I started out at the Dr. Schneider house. That's where I was raised and brought up. But there's a little strange happening there at the Dr. Schneider house at one time. This house being in the middle of town, right across the street almost from the Wood General Store. We were all gone that day for school. I was in the high school age. We all gone. Pop, he was at work. Mom was home herself. It was still fairly early in the morning, so Mom was getting a little extra rest while we were gone. And it was in late fall, so it was cold and chilly, and the heater was running. Mom went into a pretty deep sleep. All of a sudden, she heard a woman's voice, and it said, "Pauline. Get up, Pauline." And being in a doctor's house, back in those days, that was like a hospital. Many people died in those homes. I never knew it was a doctor's house all through my childhood years. I didn't know that it was basically a Greenwich doctor's office where people who had bad diseases or got injured on the farm, maybe got shot, hit over the head with a frying pan from their wife. But that's where they went, Dr. Schneider. And we lived in that house. So my mom's asleep and she hears a voice. And we're thinking, who or what? She kept sleeping, but this time she felt a shaking. Somebody was pushing her around while she was laying in bed trying to sleep. And someone kept saying, "Pauline, get up. You must get up." Well, Daniel, can I ask him a question here? I'm telling these stories, and you always have that pleasant smile on your face. Daniel must be the nicest guy who lives in Greenwich, and nothing, just nothing scares Daniel. These stories I'm telling, most people would be running. Daniel just sits there, smiles, and shakes his head. Boy, I'll tell you, you can't have a better friend than Daniel. Well, let me get on back with the story. She felt the shaking, and she was actually physically being shook. And this voice said, "Pauline, Pauline, you must get up. The house is on fire." And all of a sudden, Ma started to wake up. She started choking and gasping on the smoky air. You know, in a fire, the smoke kills a lot of people, more people than the fire does itself. She's coughing and gagging, and the house at that time had smoke all over. And there was fire, but right till the minute she got up, this woman's voice said, Pauline, Pauline, you must get out of the house. My mom jumped up, put a robe gown on. She went downstairs, real quickly called the fire company. Phone was in the kitchen. She went out the kitchen door and stood outside while the fire company came. And he said, well, what? Well, it's kind of strange. She heard somebody was waking her up. Somebody or who or what was waking her up. Earlier we talked about some evil spirits that will yank you out of a chair and pull your hair, do other stuff and play tricks on you. But sometimes there's things that happen. We as humans, we just can't explain it. No matter what our faith is, how much faith we have, or if we have no faith. We can't explain certain things that happen in our lifetime, in the world, and particularly here in Greenwich. But the real mystery isn't done yet. I didn't know about this story till recent years. Pauline, Pauline, Pauline. My mom's name is Dorothy. Well, whoever was calling her was making a mistake. They were saying the wrong name. That's hard to explain, isn't it? No, it isn't. My mom's name, her real first name is Pauline. And I'm her own son. And at that point in my life, I never knew it. All the kids when she was young used to tease her when she was named Pauline. Her middle name was Dorothy. Back around 1945 at the end of World War II, when she moved to Greenwich with my dad, and this was his hometown, no one had ever heard her being called Pauline. It was Dorothy Jones, Dot Jones. That's how we knew her. I'm her own son, and that's how I knew her. But whoever or whatever it was the day of the fire, they saved her life. They woke her up. They got her out of the house. Whoever or whatever it was, they knew what her real name was.